All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Jerry Merkins. With me is Cody Swan, CEO of Gunner Technology. What's up, Cody?
Not much, just still getting in the Christmas spirit.
Man, countdown is on though, huh?
Yeah,
What is it, 10 days?
Yeah, I'm kind of sad. 12
No,
days.
it's 12 days, 12 days. Oh my gosh, it's 12 days till Christmas.
That's right. It's like the 12 days of Christmas, but I think it's actually after Christmas. I think the first day of Christmas is Christmas.
Oh, is that like the Eastern Orthodox celebration?
The Epiphany. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
and the whole, the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me, like all that. Like, people think that's like the 12 days leading up to Christmas, but I think it's actually the 12 days after Christmas. Like,
see, I always thought it was the 12 days leading up to Christmas, but that's interesting.
Birthday. Yeah, because it leads up to the Epiphany,
right?
Which is
like January, yeah, something or other. Well, I mean, that's the kind of fun facts. That's the kind of knowledge you get from the Gunner Technology live stream. Yeah. But we'll dive right into it here. Let's go through our Country Shore giveaway. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countryshoreoutfitters.com. The winner this week is actually, this is a surprise, but it's Mike S. from all the way up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I didn't realize Country Shore made its way up that far, but congratulations.
Ice fishing, man.
I guess that's it. Yeah. That's huge. Probably starting to get in season too, right?
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be cold up there.
It's just constantly cold up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But Mike, you got a Country Shore hat and copies of our ebooks heading your way. And for anyone who didn't win this week, sign up on our Facebook page. And while you're on our Facebook page, go ahead and answer the question of the week, which this past week, what was that, Cody?
Did you buy anything, or do you plan on buying anything that you would consider to be a techie gift for someone this Christmas? And it was like 50-50, neck and neck. It was like 51-49. And then I think I voted, and I might have pushed it to 50-50.
Okay, so, okay. Did anyone post what gifts they're buying in the comments?
I did get a robot vac and Wi-Fi range extender and some Bluetooth headphones.
What about like Kindle or Alexa related stuff?
I didn't see. Oh, I do see an Echo Dot on there. Yep, I see an Echo Dot on there. So, but I don't see any Kindle. I didn't see any Kindle stuff per se.
Interesting. So robot vacuums really are sort of the hot thing.
They're hot. They're hot. Buy now.
Is it like Rosie the robot
from the Jetsons?
Yeah. Is it like a full-size robot?
Yeah, you can it's actually just like a little disc, and it just like
that's disappointing.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It doesn't even say anything.
Ugh. Well, while you're on our Facebook page, make sure to answer the next question of the week, which, Cody, what is that? What's the question coming up?
Did you send a Christmas card this year?
Oh, that's a good one.
Holiday card. Did you send a Christmas or holiday card this year?
No, what constitutes a Christmas card? Like actually going to like a JCPenney and getting a hilarious photo taken and creating a Christmas card, or just writing a Christmas card, period?
It's sending a holiday or Christmas card to a wide swath of people. Put it that way.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting.
I got a good one from an old buddy of ours, Matt Walker. He always sends great Christmas cards. And this year they were all dressed as the pink bunnies from Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty good.
That's a really good one.
Yep.
Interesting. So I guess I'm trying to think. What was it? Christmas of the Cranks? Was that the one where they were getting their fancy Christmas cards made? Yeah. So it's still a pretty big tradition.
Yeah, I sent a Christmas card this year. So,
what were you dressed as?
Well, actually,
Kylo Ren.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't actually of me. It was of the
dogs.
The dogs. Yep.
The Danes.
Yep.
Cool. We'll hop on our Facebook page, answer that question of the week, and make sure to sign up for the Country Shore giveaway. But let's go ahead and dive into this week's topic, which we talked about marketing last week. So I guess once you sort of got your app out there, you got your marketing plan in place. It's sort of that's cruising along. You're getting, I guess the important part is getting a ton of usage of your app. Once you get a lot of users of your app, you're immediately going to start getting a ton of feedback on your app. So this week's episode is about how to update your application. And I think a lot of this goes back to what we talked about before in terms of the process in place when you're building out the application, specifically sort of the agile iterative process, because with a code base that's sort of always ready to launch, updating becomes that much easier. So maybe that's a good place to start as far as how to update your application.
Yeah, as we sort of got into last week, talking about how it's kind of silly to ever think of a launch as a finish. It's really a beginning, and that's why part of the lead up to a launch is acting as though you're launching every week, because there's no one launch. You basically want to launch every week, and so when you take an agile approach to software development, really you are launching at the end of every iteration. In our case, that's usually a week, so we're launching every week. Now the thing is, the app may not be available for public consumption. It may not be quote unquote ready for public consumption, but we're launching it every week. We're putting a usable product out every week. And so we go through the steps of launching launching an app or launching updates every single week or every single iteration. So when we actually do have a mass amount of customers, it's no big deal. We're already very comfortable with deploying updates with no downtime.
And what's the process as far as actually, I guess, planning out iterations and determining what updates should be prioritized and pushed out?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing as getting to that. It's funny because now it makes a lot more sense. It's the same process as we went through with the big bucket of user stories at the beginning. Going back to last week, the kind of the first step in getting the platform or app off the ground is creating all these user stories, and then calculating a velocity and an effort points for each user story to determine how long it's going to take to get through those. Well, once you have launched to the public, I'll say, because like I said, we're launching every week. Once you've launched to the public and those user stories are empty, then those user stories start filling up immediately because you start getting feedback. And it's the team's job to take the feedback and turn those into new user stories. And then it's the development team's job to take those user stories and again assign effort points to them. This one is a big feature request, so this is a 16. This one's not very hard, so it'll be a 1. And then again, you take a look at all those points in the backlog and you determine, based on your development so far, how many effort points your team can finish in a week or in one iteration. So maybe that's 18. You get 18 points in iteration. So you take that giant 16-point ticket and 2 1-point tickets, and that's what you're going to do this week. And the priority for those tickets comes from the stakeholder who's saying, okay, this feedback about adding the ability to have a video as a profile photo is really important. It's really important. We got a lot of feedback on that. So let's make sure we get that. Okay, well, that's a 16-point ticket. So we can get to that this week, but we're not going to get to a lot more than that this week, kind of thing. So that's kind of how the prioritization and scheduling goes.
You touched on something interesting there too, where you talked about the feedback you're going to get from users once you actually launch your product. And I guess it sort of depends on what phase of the development cycle you're in. Sort of the pre-alpha phase, it's going to be a lot of internal feedback from people with sort of direct access, usually to your ticketing system, where they can actually just open issues directly based on what they find. And I guess the alpha and maybe the closed beta to sort of friends and family, you're going to have users who will directly contact you with stuff they see. Maybe not open tickets directly, but you'll sort of get the immediate feedback from them. What about the long-term feedback mechanisms for sort of average Joe user who might find a bug or have a feature request, something that would sort of make the app that much more useful for them? What are the mechanisms there as far as collecting that feedback?
So almost any bug should be captured automatically. It should cause an error, which should bubble up into create an automatic ticket that lets the development team that an error occurred. There are certain cases where there are bugs that don't generate errors. And so in that case, you need a kind of like a feedback tool for the users, like it makes no sense to roll your own, but to use an existing tool out there like Zendesk or something like that. Or even if you're low budget, use Google Forms, like have a suggestion, have a problem, click here, and then fill out a Google form. And that Google form just goes to the development team so they can get the feedback. And you know what's funny is that you mentioned that at this point, the user stories, the nexus at least of the user stories start coming from the actual users rather than the internal team. And it's at this point that the user stories actually get really good. They're much better because when you're working with the internal team, they have a very kind of stilted view toward the application. So like, for example, we were working with someone and they said a user story, as a user, I want to pay so I can do this, that, and the other thing. And it basically what it was like, it's a free app and then you have to pay for certain additional features. And I'm like, no user wants to pay. The user wants to do whatever they have to pay for. So the user story is, as a user, I want to whatever because why ever. And then a requirement of that user story is they have to be a paying subscriber to unlock this feature. So you actually get to the point what the users want rather than what the stakeholders want. And generally, the stakeholders have a vision, but the users have more direct requirements. And so it's great as a stakeholder. Okay, as a user, I want to upload 20 videos instead of 10 videos so I can create a more extensive video library. Great. As the stakeholder may say, wow, that's a good feature for paying members only. So then you don't change the user story, but you add a requirement to that user story that has to be fulfilled.
The interesting thing there too is that the internal development team and the stakeholders sort of have a it's almost like they have blinders on, where there's stuff that they might not even see just because they've been using it for so long, where a brand new user or someone who's just seeing the application for the first time might see something that you never would have even thought of. And is there any value? Because I know sort of in human computer interaction, there's a lot of theory around bringing the end users in as early as possible. So whether that's walking them through sort of like a paper-based prototype or a Wizard of Oz prototype, or sending them surveys and forms to sort of gauge how useful the functionality that you're building is actually going to be. Is there anything to be done there as far as not necessarily updating your app? I guess it sort of is, though. It's updating the app before you even sort of launch it to the wider public.
Well, take a step back. Before, we're working on a project right now, and before we've written a lick of code, we've done workflows. We've done user stories, workflows, and forms. And so, for example, each of these forms is one part of the application at a certain stage in the workflow. So these forms are what the user will be filling out at each stage of the process. But without writing any code, we've been able to send this out and have people like say, what are we forgetting? Like in this case, it's a kind of a vehicle coming into a garage, and we have like the check-in stage, the pickup stage, the diagnosis stage, the completed stage, the assignment stage, all these stages, and then what goes into each stage. And we're like, do we have this right? Is the service rep the person who's putting this information in? Is it the technician who's going to put this information in? And they can see, and they're like, oh yeah, no, it would be this, that, and the other thing, and this stage would come before that. So before you write any code, you can have kind of this visualization that will reveal gaps in your logic.
Yeah, so it's sort of through the iterative process, you sort of end up launching a vastly superior project than if you sort of just went with a more traditional waterfall method and built out exactly what you imagined you needed to build. I guess the question then becomes, after you've launched your product and you start getting this massive amount of feedback from end users, how do you determine what's actually useful to build? And how do you sort of maintain the identity of your product when users might want it to do something completely different?
Yeah, it's tough because, and aside from that is, users aren't always the best at communicating what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And they usually do so when they're mad. And so the feedback is also kind of skewed toward either emotional feedback or kind of negative feedback. And so you have to be careful that you're not just, pulling the trigger on something because one or two people complained about it. Because the thing is it's actually positive feedback that is more valuable than negative feedback, because positive feedback, if people are happy about it, they're not, that's tacit feedback, and the fact that they're not complaining about it. So you have to kind of look at how many active users you have versus how many are complaining and what are they complaining about. Like if you have 100 active users and 50 are complaining about the same thing, you should probably add that feature or change that feature or whatever. But if you have 100 active users and one is complaining about something, you don't really want to, you really don't want to change your product or your development cycle for that matter, just because one user is complaining about it. The tricky thing is what happens when that user is like an investor,
Yeah.
and that's where the song and dance really comes in, because they gave you money, and we talked about this before. They gave you money to help you build their vision, but you're not really you're they're not your boss. You don't have to do what they say. Like it should be an equal relationship in the fact that they invested in you because they believed you could make them a lot of money. So you're well within your rights to say, hey, I appreciate the feedback, but as the expert here, I really don't think that our users are going to appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the angle there with the stakeholder too. I mean, or even people on the internal team who might have uh, sort of very strong opinions about what needs to be built out when, and this sort of gets back to the too many cooks in the kitchen problem. That might not necessarily be the functionality that the application needs right now.
Yeah, it's like don't fight it if your users are taking your product in a different direction. Like if it's becoming clear that they're going in a different direction, don't fight it.
Yeah, embrace it. I mean, that's how your product's going to grow, is to get people excited about it, no matter how they end up using it.
Exactly.
Um, One thing I was going to mention back when we were talking about that is, that would have been a really interesting use case for AWS Cognito, right? To sort of do sentiment analysis on feedback that you're getting. I guess once you get to sort of like a critical mass of feedback where you have enough of it, that might be sort of a useful thing to sort of parse out the positive feedback based on the verbiage used in the feedback itself.
Yeah, totally. That would be good, because yeah, you definitely want to, you definitely don't want to be chasing rabbits around. You definitely want to kind of get an idea of the scope of the request, meaning like how many of your users are actually complaining about it. Because like the users who like the sign-in process, for example, aren't going to complain about it. The users who don't like it are going to complain about it. So you have to kind of like look and see, okay, well, we have 100 million users and 10 of them are complaining very loudly about the sign-in process. It's like, are we going to change our product to suit these 10 people? No, especially in a product like that, you build for the masses. And again, if you're building a B2B product, and like let's say you have 10 customers, and like one of them is your big customer, they're your big paying customer, you're going to listen to their feedback because they're the ones who are actually supporting your product. I mean, it's just the way it goes.
This is sort of something that a lot of companies and ideas and applications don't get to, but what about sort of like a major redesign or a major relaunch? I know we did that at ESPN with fan profiles. What's the strategy around, I guess it's getting the word out again? Because you sort of have this initial launch, you have this initial publicity, you have a lot of interest in a new product. How do you drum up interest when your product sort of transforms into something else and you want people to get excited about it all over again?
I mean, that's what you really should have, is like a built-in notification mechanism for when people log into your app and it's changed. You get that somewhat via the app stores. However, most apps update automatically now, so you don't even really know when they updated. So you kind of need some mechanism that can tell if this is their first time logging in or opening the app after a major update. So you can say, hey, here's what we did, here's what's new, here's how you can leave feedback, kind of thing. That's the best way to do it, to like let people who are already using the application or platform know that there's been a change, what the change is, and how you can let them know, how you can let us know if you like the change, kind of thing.
Any final thoughts on how to update your app once you've launched it?
Um,
It's really the fun part of the whole process. Once you get a ton of users giving you a ton of really good feedback, I mean, that's when the product really starts taking off, and you can build it into something that a whole bunch of people love using.
yeah, it's weird because like almost no major changes go over very well. I mean, think about like the major overhauls to like Facebook,
Snapchat,
Reddit,
was that the one where they completely screwed the
Snapchat.
pooch?
Yeah, Snapchat, I think they actually did really
Or was it WhatsApp? One of the two had like a massive decline in usership.
Yeah, no, that was Snapchat.
Okay.
They got hurt bad there. But like that one,
Back in the day, was it Dig? The Dig redesign? Where
the Dig
like
redesign.
overnight people stopped using it.
Yep. So like the point is you kind of have to be nimble enough where you can roll back, but you have to have thick skin in the fact that if you know what you're doing is best for the user. And by the way, the two examples that we talked about, Dig and Snapchat, those redesigns were made with the idea of how do we make more money from the application.
Exactly.
It wasn't how do we provide a better experience for the users. And I understand it's a dicey game because you got to make money at some point. But like, just keep in mind that if you're doing it in the mind of the users, you're always going to have some users who are very vocally upset about the changes. But if you're really doing it based on feedback, then you know you're serving your other users. And again, a lot of companies like Yahoo and Reddit, they give the ability for users to use the old version of something. A lot of times it's not always possible, but that's something to consider. It adds a lot of maintenance if you're going to be supporting multiple versions. But if you're really worried about losing a big chunk of your user base, that might be a way to go as well.
Or I mean, something that's done in software a lot is to set dates where we're going to support this until, December 31st, 2019. It's going to be available until December 31st, 2020, and then it's going to be gone.
Right.
We're not going to support it. And it's not going to be available.
Yep.
So I guess that's any final thoughts or?
No, I think that's a really good way to go. And yeah, like I said, just you get panicky stakeholders who, when they've never been exposed to like the real vitriol of the internet, and when people start spitting hate, they start like panicking. It's like, this is typical behavior of the internet. People love to be angry and they love to spew venom. So just kind of like, again, if you know that you're doing this for the betterment of users, ride it out.
Yeah.
Most people won't leave if they like a product and it's updated. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Don't read the comments section. Should be the message of how to update your application.
It should be the motto of life.
Yeah, it really should. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to check us out next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Are we going to be here?
Check.
Yeah, it's the 20th. Yeah, it's just the 20th. Yep, never mind. Yeah,
I'm not sure we're actually going to miss an episode because Christmas
think
falls on that key window. I think probably Saturday to Tuesday is the window where we'd probably still do the live stream. Yeah. So definitely catch us next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can check out the blog post for this episode at gunnertech.com. The podcast will be on iTunes. Make sure to check out our ebooks on iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kobo, and anywhere else ebooks are sold. Hop on our Facebook page and sign up for the Country Store giveaway. Country Store is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. You can visit them at countrystoreoutfitters.com. And while you're on our Facebook page, make sure to answer our question of the week, which this week's question is.
What was the question of the week this week?
This week's question is, are you sending out
a Christmas or holiday card this year?
Yeah. And I guess it has to be to redefine a Christmas card, it has to be sort of like a mass-produced card that you send out to a whole bunch of people.
Right, exactly. Obviously, I hope you're at least giving a Christmas or holiday card to someone this year, but like, yeah, the whole sending it to a contact list kind of thing. Like,
if you're not, send one to us. We'd love to get a Christmas card from you.
And it's a digital hate card.
Yeah.
On feedback.
Filled with vitriol.
Yes.
So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Make sure to check us out next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time for the next episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. I'm Derry. That's Cody. We'll see you next week.